There we go. Now we're in business. So anyway, good morning, everybody. Just like to start out by telling you again, thank you for taking time out of your business to listen to what we have to say about National Guardian Life this morning. Like Mark said, I'm an active producer in the field. I have an office in Columbus, Ohio. So we're out seeing the same clients that you're out seeing on a daily basis. And today we're going to try to give you some information that you'll be able to carry out into the field and help your clients address an issue that doesn't get addressed as often as possible. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth as we move forward. So the things we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about the opportunity that exists using the National Guardian Life products. We'll talk about the trust that they provide that are free for the clients to hold the asset in. We'll talk about the product that we use to fund it, give you a couple presentation ideas and tools that you can use immediately, and then we'll talk about National Guardian Life itself and the value that they bring as a company. So the opportunity that we'll talk about today, it was brought to me about 14 years ago by a mentor I had in the business. At the time, I didn't know anything at all about the product. But he assured me that if I would take the time to learn it and implement it in our sales process, that we would see a big revenue generator from this particular product. That was 14 years ago. Here we are today. We use it every day in our practice, or at least we're talking about it to our clients or potential clients every day. And the opportunity is huge, because if you look at most things in life, we all know we're in the planning business. So we have to work with the client, figure out what their needs and goals are, or suggest things that they may have overlooked that they need to take care of. Give them the options on how to solve the problem. Give them a good plan that will allow them to solve that problem. And then again, figure out where the dollars are at to be able to fund the plan to solve that problem. And what we found is that with funerals and final expenses, they aren't any different. And before I move on this, I want to say too, we're a financial advising company. So, we do annuities, we do life insurance, we do all the other things. But this is a great ancillary product, because what we found out is that most people haven't taken the time to do any planning with this. And what happens is someone's going to need to determine the services and pay the bill when someone passes away. And then the question's going to become who and when. Is it going to be the deceased prior to death? In other words, are they going to have their affairs in order to make it easy on the people who have to take care of their final wishes? Or will it be the survivors afterwards, like I found myself? Just kind of a personal story with me. My mom and dad divorced when I was 2. I'm the youngest of 5 children. Anytime anything happens in the family, I've always been the entrepreneur, so everybody looks to me for advice. And I found myself on January 21st of 2011 sitting in a funeral director's home or office because my father had passed away. And when I was in there, the funeral director started asking me questions like, what was my dad's mother's maiden name? What was his highest rank in the military? His favorite flower, favorite hymn? And these were all things that I did not have the question or the answers for. And it really made me realize that what we do for our clients is very valuable, because if my father had taken the time to do this, then what would have happened is I would have been able to walk right into the funeral director's home, hand them the National Guardian Life contract, hand them the planning guide that goes with it, and all the questions that they were asking me would have been handled and taken care of. So I found out the hard way, but it also made me realize that what we do for our clients has great value. So there's a couple different ways when you pass away to take care of your funeral. You can plan and pay for the funeral at the funeral home. They call this pre-need. So you go into the funeral home, you get everything in order, you write them a check, and you've paid basically for your funeral. Or you can set aside funds to pay for those anticipated expenses in the future. And that's what the National Guardian Life product allows us to do for our clients. When we get right down to it, funerals get expensive. You know, I've been doing these plans for 14 years, so I have clients who pass away. I had one last month that I helped them get everything done. And I always ask them what the cost of the funeral is when they're finished. And we hear on an average, they're running anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000 if a client is having a traditional funeral. And we will ask our clients that, you know what, if something happened to you yesterday, how would your funeral be paid for today? And then let them answer you, because that's really where you're going to hear some answers that will allow you to pivot and be able to present the National Guardian Life product to them and help them solve a problem that they don't even realize that they have right now. They did do a national survey, and if you look at the numbers here, it's a huge opportunity. You can go to the next one there, Mark. There we go. In a national survey, 72% thought it was a good idea to pre-plan, but 64% had not taken the steps to do so. And again, I work with the same clientele you're working with. The reason we believe that the people don't take the steps to do it is it's hard to imagine a married couple waking up on a beautiful, you know, spring morning and turning over in bed and looking at each other and saying, hey, why don't we go down and pick out our caskets today? Typically, that's not on the top of the agenda. So again, they think it's a great idea, but they don't follow through with it. And then that's where we're going to come in with the NGL product. Everyone knows that the market is huge. You know, we are in a perfect storm right now, not only for what we do on a daily basis with, you know, income planning and estate planning, but this National Guardian Life product is just feeding us new prospects every day. And as we all know, by 2025, there's going to be almost twice as many seniors as there are today. So over this next 8-year period and moving forward, what a great opportunity if you can learn this and implement it in your practice to be able to really make a nice revenue generating stream for your business. Now, where we get the conversation started with a lot of clients is 69% of all Americans older than 65 are going to need nursing care at some point. And as we know, 92% of Americans have no protection in place at all to protect everything they've worked their life for. And the national average cost of long-term care is about 68 to 78,000. I will tell you, here in Ohio, we're approaching 90. So it's getting very expensive, and clients don't realize that if they don't have that protection and they need nursing home care, they're going to have to try to qualify for Medicaid at some point, which means they're going to have to spend all their assets down and then get on the Medicaid, which is what we call them, you know, it's just government assistance is the correct word for it. So how this all fits together, we're giving them that financial protection of life insurance, but also the advantages of an irrevocable funeral trust. And what we're going to do is have them put some money aside, and they're going to know that they're setting that aside permanently, and that money will pay out when their family needs it most, which is going to be at their time of death. But when we use the trust to hold that life insurance policy, we're effectively spending that asset down. In other words, it won't be includable when they have to try for the Medicaid process. So the trusts themselves, this is a really good conversation to have, because if you had a client who wanted to do an irrevocable trust and they went and saw an estate planning attorney, that's going to cost them somewhere around $7,500. My reference point for that cost is my next door neighbor here in my office is one of the leading elder law attorneys in the area. And, you know, I know that's what they charge to do an irrevocable trust for a client. But with the NGL irrevocable trust, we're going to get some benefits. We're going to have protection from creditors. So once the money's in there, it can't be attached from a creditor. The benefits are going to pay out 100% income tax free. The funds are available immediately. I'm going to cover that here in a little bit. The trusts are free, so there's no cost for the client to put money aside and have that money be put into an irrevocable trust for them. Everyone's going to qualify for that trust assignment, and then the death proceeds are going to be used for funeral expenses, avoiding probate costs and delays of getting the money. And then the funds are totally portable. And that's a really important thing because a lot of people don't realize if you go pre-plan your funeral, let's just use one of our clients here in Ohio, you know, they're 65 years old, they go in, they pre-plan their funeral at Sheddinger Funeral Home, and then their kids and grandkids get relocated down into Florida, and they're going to follow them down there. And so they go down to Florida. Well, now they have a dilemma. They've prepaid their funeral in Ohio, but they're living in Florida. And so with the NGL Funeral Trust, it doesn't matter because it can be used at any funeral home in the country. You just take the policy into that funeral home, and then from there, National Guardian Life steps in to the claims process. So here's just a little chart on how the trusts compare to traditional savings instruments. I'll give you just a second to kind of peruse that. But you can see that every criteria that we would be looking for to protect money is met by using the irrevocable funeral trust. So how it works is actually pretty simple, and this is there's a PowerPoint and a hard copy of this when you're licensed with National Guardian Life that we use with our clients. And so what happens is the clients, we're going to find out where the money is at to help them pre-plan the funeral. We're going to have them put those funds into a single premium life policy. It's not like a traditional single premium life where you put $15,000 in and you end up with $26,000 of death benefit. It's going to be $15,000, and then maybe they're going to give them an immediate bump and make it worth $15,500. And then what will happen is it'll get assigned once it's issued to that irrevocable funeral trust, and it'll have an interest rate that is paid on it. So that $15,500 will be growing daily with simple interest. And then the funds being in the funeral trust, it's going to protect the funds. The interest earned in there is going to be tax-free until the money needs to come out. Now, what's beautiful about this program is, I'll use the client that just passed away that I'm working with now. They took the policy to the funeral home. They called me. They said, hey, John, Al's passed away. I got the name of the funeral home. I called the funeral home and got a fax number. I called National Guardian Life with the policy number. National Guardian Life at that point faxed the claim form to the funeral home, and I'm out of the picture. I don't have to deal with that anymore. And then within 48 hours, that funeral home had those funds in their possession. Now, any excess funds in an irrevocable funeral trust have to be paid to the estate. And the reason for that is when you put it in a trust and you give up that ownership and make it irrevocable, you can't name a beneficiary for any excess funds. They have to be paid back to the estate. So we try not to overfund it, but we want to make sure there are enough funds in there to make sure we have enough to cover the funeral for the client. One of the things I will tell you on this is we also had another client earlier in the year whose dad passed away, and we had one of these plans on him. And this process worked so well with the funeral home that my client told me that the actual cost of the funeral was a couple $100 more than what they had in benefit with National Guardian Life. But the funeral director told her that it was the easiest process they'd ever went with to get through to get money paid to them for a funeral, and that they were just going to waive the extra $200 because it was that easy of a process for them. So again, they've got it down to a science. It works. I've had many clients pass away with these plans. We've never had an issue, not an issue one with any of it. So we'll talk a little bit about the trusts themselves. There's two different ones that are offered through National Guardian Life. The first one is the Funeral Expense Trust. I'm going to talk about Ohio because that's where I'm at, but we will show you a chart with what your state maximum limits are. So with the Funeral Trust in Ohio, we can put $15,000 per person into the funeral trust. So if I have a married couple, I'm doing planning for them, I'm going to recommend that they each put $15,000. I'm going to pick up a $30,000 deal with that client. It'll help them exclude that asset. So once they put that money in there and it gets assigned to that irrevocable trust, that money is protected immediately from any type of a Medicaid situation. And then again, like I showed you on the previous slide, the trust is going to pay the funeral cost, and any excess funds are going to go to the estate of the insured. Now, they also have another trust, and that's the NGL Estate Planning Trust. You can put up to $100,000 per person in this one. It gives them the ability to exclude the assets to qualify for Medicaid after a 5-year look back. So with this one, it's different. It's not immediate, but once that money's in there and it's been in there 60 months, that money cannot be touched by a nursing home. Now, the funds in there, if you just have the estate planning trust and you don't have the funeral trust, they'll still pay your funeral expenses if you would like them to, and then the excess funds are going to come back to a designated beneficiary, which means it won't go back to the estate. Now, what's really important about this is if you have a client who you run into and you say, hey, have you prepaid your funeral? And they say, yeah, you know what? We went down to the funeral home and prepaid that funeral. We got everything taken care of, John. My next question to them always is, do you have any money that you know you're going to be leaving behind to somebody that you would like to know is 100% protected from a nursing home at some point in the future? And that will open up a whole nother conversation with your client. Now, what agents typically ask me when I'm doing training is, which trust do I use? What's the purpose of each one? The funeral expense trust is great for crisis planning. You're dealing with a client, maybe their spouse is in the nursing home already. They know they're spending money towards the nursing home, trying to figure out how they can protect some dollars. You can actually sit with the spouse at their house and write one of these plans on the spouse at the nursing home, and you don't ever have to see that spouse in the nursing home. So it's great crisis planning to protect dollars. Maybe you're dealing with a client where they know they're spending money. They've got other assets, but they know that within the next 5 years, Medicaid's probably going to come into the picture. What a great way to protect money for them and put it into the funeral expense trust. Or a lot of times with clients that come in from our seminars, they just want to put the money aside, know the plan's taken care of, know that the dollars are protected, and then just forget about it. And that's okay. We can do that as well. So on the estate planning trust, go back there for me, Mark. On the estate planning trust, Medicaid is a non-issue now or 5 years into the future, or maybe never. They want to easily transfer some limited wealth to their children or their charities. And just a quick story on that, I have a couple teachers here in Ohio. They have a great monthly income, great clients of ours, and they told me point blank, John, we are never buying long-term care insurance. If we lose everything, then we lose everything, but we want to make sure that we have something that will go to our daughter and to our son. And so I suggested funding $100,000 each into the estate planning trust, and we are now about 38 months into that plan with them, almost to the 4-year mark. And so, well, we're getting close. But at any rate, they know within the next year and a half that money is 100% protected and will go to their children regardless of what happens to them in a nursing home situation. And that's the real opportunity, because you can pick up some big cases with that. Now, the product itself is real easy to understand. It's a single premium life insurance policy that's going to be issued by the company. It's called the NGL Asset Guard. It's just a fixed product. It's going to give them a fixed interest rate. We're going to use it to fund the trust, and then it's going to grow with the interest being tax-free at the time it's paid out. So there are some individual state limits, and the reason I like to look at this, I can see we have a lot of people on the call today, so I'm sure there's people from all over the country, but you can look there at your state. Let's say that you're somebody that lives in, I think Florida on there. Let me get to Florida. Yeah, so in Florida, you can't do a funeral trust, but you can do an estate planning trust. So you can still talk to the client about getting this taken care of, but you're just going to have to recommend to them that you use the estate planning trust, and then in 5 years that money will be protected. So you can't give them day one protection with the funeral trust, but you can certainly still use this as a planning tool for them, and just let them know that however much money they want to put in that estate planning trust, that 5 years down the road, no one can touch the money. It will be protected across the board. You go on the next one there, Mark. So here's everything that an irrevocable funeral trust is going to cover. So basically everything in a funeral that you would expect to be covered and paid for can be paid for out of the irrevocable funeral trust. Even down there you'll see transfer of deceased. If you had a client that was on vacation, they passed away in another state and you needed to get them back home, you could use this policy to actually pay for that transfer of the deceased. So the asset guard highlights, I'm going to talk about the single pay because that's what we use in our practice. The minimum face amount is $500. The maximum, again, is $100,000. You can assign them an interest rate. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Single pay is issued from 0 to 99. So again, finding the people to talk to about it shouldn't be much of a problem. There's one health question on the application. They're going to get approved no matter what. If they answer no, they're going to be a standard issue. If they answer yes, they'll be a guaranteed issue. Where you'll see that affect you is in commissions. But the good thing is, at least you know no matter what, you're going to get the contract issued for the client. All single pays are immediate full death benefit. So if we put $15,000 in there and the client dies a week from now, we know the client's going to get the money out of the plan. So some of the other product features is that it couldn't be easier to do. If you don't like paperwork, you are going to love National Guardian Life. It's 2 pieces of paper and your state replacement disclosure. So how nice is that? You know, I like to tell the story of when I got in the annuity business. Back in 1993, I wrote my very first annuity. I was in a dry cleaners in Marion, Ohio. It was $25,000. I couldn't even believe someone would let me walk out of their business with a $25,000 check. But the beautiful thing about it was that application back in 1993 for an annuity was 3 pages, and one of those pages was the receipt. As we all know, if we're doing any type of annuity business today, now it's 28, 30, 35 pages of paperwork. This one here, here's the top of the application. So again, just all the basic information for the client. You've got the health question on there. Then at the bottom of it, you're going to see where the client is going to sign. And then the next page of it is just going to basically be a receipt for the client if you're picking up a cash deal. And then you'll have the disclosure for either that we're showing the funeral expense trust. There's a separate one for the estate planning trust. You'll have the client, you go through that and have the client sign off on that. And then you'll have your state replacement form. On the bottom of that disclosure there, if you have a client who's in a crisis planning and they're really just, their money's going out the back door to the nursing home like a sieve, and you want to get that money protected immediately, typically what happens when the policy's issued, 45 days after issue, it goes into the irrevocable trust. But if you need it to go in there immediately, you can sign off on it and waive the 45 days and have those funds put into the trust immediately to help for Medicaid eligibility purposes. So when you're presenting it to clients, it's like anything else. What we always recommend when we have a new client or a new agent that we're working with is start by talking to your current clients. You know, your current clients are people who know you, they trust you, You've already done business with them. You know, if I was presenting this to if I was a new agent using this product and hadn't worked with it, I'd learn how the product worked, and then when I did my annual review, I'd just say to the client, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, we've been doing business together now 5, 6, 7 years, whatever that number may be. Would you agree that everything that I've recommended to you has pretty much followed the course of how I told you it would work? 99% are going to say yes. At that point, it's real easy. Well, hey, there's an issue that we haven't covered that I want to talk to you about today, and we're going to go ahead and get this handled for you. I always assume that we're going to close the deal, so I'm telling them, we're going to go ahead and get this handled for you. So we're going to review the issues, discuss the needs, and then when you're presenting the funeral trust funding, stress the benefits of planning ahead. I'm fortunately or unfortunately, since my dad passed away, I've had a story I could tell. You know, I was there. I saw what happens when you don't have the planning done ahead. I will tell you this, and this is very new to my presentation here. My uncle lost his mom last week at the beginning of the week. She was 102 years old. My wife and him are very close. I came home and my wife said that my uncle was in that funeral home. He was calling cousins to get answers about things to his mom that he did not know. So again, having things in order can really be useful to your family as well. You can use the plan at any nursing home. We do a lot of our business in 1035 exchanges. We do a lot in cash as well. But the thing we like about 1035 exchanges is most of your clients do not realize if they own a life insurance policy and they die, that they do not get both the cash value and the death benefit. They get whatever is bigger. So what we do is if they own any life insurance policies, we don't care how old they are, we're going to have them get them out on the table. We're going to call those companies, because those old paid up policies, you're going to find that a lot of them will have $10,000 or $11,000 of cash value and maybe only a $13,000 death benefit. Well, if you explain to the client that, hey, that's your money that they're going to be paying when you pass away, the majority of it, does it make sense to leave it in that policy? And if you go into a nursing home, the nursing home's going to make you spend all of that cash? Or do we 1035 exchange it into the National Guardian Life Program and protect that money forever? You will be amazed if you have that conversation with your clients. Kind of a rule of thumb with us, we believe if we're within 25% of the death benefit, that it's good for the client. What do I mean by that? We just did a plan. 20,000 face value, they had 15,000 in cash value. We believe that's appropriate to give up the 5,000 in death benefit to protect the 15,000 and give them an interest rate to continue to grow the 15,000 until the money's needed. So really have your eyes open on old life insurance policies. And then you got to close the sale. Again, the client has that peace of mind of knowing that, you know what, they've planned ahead and their funds are protected. You know, we've never had a client tell us they were disappointed in putting this plan in place. So where do we find the money? The money's already there. We'll have the conversation with the client and say, hey, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if you really think about it in theory, we're really not buying anything. We're repositioning an asset to protect it from a nursing home spend down situation, as well as making sure that your funeral funds are there when your family needs them the most. So again, CDs, money markets, old insurance policies, 10% penalty-free withdrawals out of annuities. One of the things we hear a lot when we ask a client, have you prepaid your funeral? We'll hear them say, well, you know, my daughter knows I have a $15,000 CD over at the bank that when I die, that's designated for my funeral. Well, does it make sense to leave it over there in a low interest rate environment and have it susceptible to being lost if you need some type of care in the future? Or should we move it over into the irrevocable funeral trust and make sure it's protected for a lifetime? Pretty easy decision for the client at that point. So here's the brochures that we use when we're doing the planning with the client. We use the ones that flank that understanding Medicaid. I don't think the understanding Medicaid's necessary if you're doing a good job in your presentation. But the funeral expense trust and the estate planning trust brochures are great. You can have your company information imprinted on the back of them. Once you're licensed with National Guardian Life, they do all that in-house for you. Again, they've been around for 100 years. I always like to show you the information because, as we all know, with an insurance company, they're only as good as the time you need them. I have been doing this for 14 years, and I will tell you without question, without doubt, one of the best companies that I've worked with, from application to getting a claims processed when we've lost a client. So once you're licensed with them, you get access to their website. It has a plethora of information on there. You can see there where it says reports. You can open that up. It'll show you your commissions. If you like getting commissions quickly, just let me give you an example of how that works. We send in an application on a Monday to National Guardian Life if it's a cash with app deal. We're usually, by Wednesday, we're looking at the commissions in our checking account here at the company. If it's a transfer or a 1035 exchange, they've got a great process where they can usually get that money funded within about a 3-week period, sometimes 2 weeks. They're really good at what they do. It's got training videos. It's got PowerPoint presentation if you want to do it to a group or even in front of a client. Everything you could possibly need, including ordering your supplies, brochures, applications, are right there on the website. So why sell the product? We showed you the stats. Your clients need it. They're thinking about it. It's a great income opportunity for your business. The trusts are free, so there's no fees. And our clients tell us they have never had anybody ever talk to them about this other than us here at Inting Financial Services. So we don't have any competition. The funds are portable. They can be used at any funeral home. A great company that issues the contract. Give your client that peace of mind, and then it's easy to do. Again, it's 2 pieces of paper and your state disclosure or your state replacement form, excuse me, and that's it, and you're ready to submit your application. And if you don't do it, someone else will, but that someone else is probably not going to be a licensed insurance agent. It's going to be your local funeral home. So we like to use this illustration, and I think it's pretty accurate, that if you just worked with 2 couples a month and you just picked up $10,000 on each one of them for a funeral plan, you're going to add $40,000 to your bottom line a year. I like to break those numbers down into a monthly benefit. You're talking about $3,500 a month of extra revenue coming into the company just from doing reviews. And this is just a minimal example. But that could take care of office expenses. It could allow you to hire an assistant if you don't have one. So there's a lot of uses, and it's always nice to have another leg to your income model for your business. So here's a look at the commission grid. We're going to look at that left-hand top corner. This is on a single premium. Go down to that 61 to 65-year-old. If you wrote a 61 to 65-year-old, they were both healthy. You picked up, you max funded here in Ohio, so we did $15,000 on each spouse. That's 30 grand. That's a $4,000 commissionable sale. And the beautiful thing is the clients, once it's placed, it goes into an irrevocable trust. They're never going to call and ask you to get the money back out or borrow from it. They understand it's irrevocable. It's only paid out at the time of death. So that's a beautiful thing. Even 66 to 70, you can see the commissions, 11%. If you're in the annuity business, how nice would that be to have that kind of compensation? But unfortunately, the reality is we don't. So this is a great supplement and income generating tool. So they do sales conferences every year, and this is where their next one's at here at the Punta Cana Resort. I've been to their sales conference. Everything is top class, first first rate, and you get to, again, I've always been one of the guys when I've went on, whether it's an annuity sales conference or a National Guardian Life, I'm trying to find the guys who are doing the most business, and I'm trying to find out how they're doing it, because I know everything is, you can replicate it if they'll share that information with you. So some of the biggest challenges that we see with agents when they license with National Guardian Life is getting comfortable with the concept. You know, back in 1993 when I sold my first annuity, I didn't even know what I was doing. And I picked up a $25,000 check, and I thought that was huge. Here we are in 2017, and you know, clients give us $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 checks to fund an annuity. It's not because I'm the smartest guy in the world, but it's repetition. I've been doing it so long, I have a process for it. So remember, your clients believe that pre-planning is a good idea. They just need somebody to lead them to the solution. So learning how to present is huge. You got to know your product and stress those benefits of pre-planning ahead, and then keeping it on the top of the mind. Every client, every day. It's real simple. You just ask them this question and you'll write business. Have you pre-planned your funeral today? It's a yes or no. If they say no, we haven't, you need to talk to them about how to get it done. If they say yes, we have, do you have any money that you know you're going to pass on to a beneficiary that you would like to know will not be taken by a nursing home in the event you get ill in the future? And then you can flip them to the other trust. So this guide for beneficiaries is made available to agents that get licensed with National Guardian Life. We developed this about 5 or 6 years ago. What it does is it was a way to allow us to go out and revisit with the client and update all their finances for them. And then once we did that for them and presented this booklet to them, we were able to actually implement some more planning into their home. You think clients tell you everything about what they have, and we're pretty thorough in our fact finder, but let me share our successes with this beneficiary guide. Gentleman that works for me, we put the guide together. I said, one will go out and see every client. He went out and saw our clients, and over a 6-month period, he picked up an additional $1.5 million in annuity premium, $200,000 in single premium life insurance, traditional, and about $150,000 in National Guardian Life. Again, like anything else, practice is going to make perfect. So it's having the plan and then having a system. So this is what it looks like. It's just a guide for my beneficiaries. And inside the guide, once you get that PDF for it, you'll see we list everything they need to do, letters they need to write, who they need to contact. And then on the front of ours, it says Inting Financial Services with our company information. One of the greatest things about this business is if you do a good job for your client and they pass away, you will get an opportunity to work with those assets again. But you only get that opportunity if you're the first guy they call, typically. So we want to make sure that if something happens to somebody, that our office is the one that gets the phone call, so that we can get in there and help them settle the estate and make sure that we don't lose those assets to a competitor. So inside it, we have this guide. This is what we use to update all of their assets. Again, this is where our success came in, of uncovering assets that they hadn't even told us about before. So Mark, if you go ahead and go, it's going to be basic information. We're updating everything about their children. And then if you go to the next page, I think one more, question 8. Have you prepaid your funeral? We put it right in there for you. So that's a yes or no question. I wouldn't stop there and start pitching a product, but I would certainly be making note, and that's something I'd have high on my agenda to talk to them, because the money's already there. You just need to pitch the concept and get money from one of these places they've already shared with you that they have money at. So that being said, that's how we do it. I will say one other thing, Mark, before we take questions. National Guardian Life has a It's an organizer for your final affairs. It's really nice. It's done in high gloss. And what we do is when we sell one of these plans, we give it to the client and we say, hey, before we bring your policy back, we'd like you to get this completed. I was always taught in sales to leave a task for a client when you're doing a deal with them. So we'll leave that for them. To put that in perspective, had my father had that filled out, every one of the questions that they asked me at the nursing home would have been answered in that guide. So we tell our clients once we write them a National Guardian Life contract, we're going to take the contract, we're going to put it with this guide. If we had never met you before and someone told us you passed away, we could pick this up, hand it to the funeral director, and he could take care of your final wishes of what you want to happen. Any questions out there, Mark? I'm good to go.
You know, there are, John. I just want to throw some out real quick to the attendees
Sure.
here. A couple things. I'm going to put a quick poll out here for those that would be interested in getting contracted. And so for those of you that do, we have a special presentation that we'll be doing, I believe it's in 2 weeks, John, where you will talk about how you handle objections, how you work on closing the sale. So it's a great opportunity for you to learn how John does it. And again, if you recall, he is one of the top producers there for NGL. And when we do have these particular webinars, we notice that agents out of 10 have a tremendous success, or I should say they really start right in business because they get a better feel for handling some of those objections that you're going to run into. So if you fill out the contract, you get appointed, we'll send you the invitation for that particular webinar that will be coming up here in a couple weeks. Okay, so first question comes to us from Tim. Tim says, can mom and dad do $100,000 each, 2 trusts into the estate planning trust?
Yes, they can do $100,000 each to the estate planning trust. Absolutely.
Let's see. You know, I don't see anybody else have any questions. Go ahead and type those in the question box, and we'll get those addressed while we have John on the phone here. And something else that I want to mention to you is if you do have questions later, maybe sometime today, once I email you the recording, because I will do that. Some of you jumped on here after I had started the presentation this morning, but we will email that to you. If you do have any questions, you can always call our office. We do a lot of this business. We field a lot of questions. And so if we run into a situation where maybe we can't help you with it, we'll certainly get you an answer. So keep that in mind and maybe jot the number down here. I don't see it on the screen here this morning, but it's 800-255-5055. John, I don't see any other questions. I know you did a great job as always. We certainly appreciate that. So I don't know if you have any parting comments, but it looks like our question box is empty.
Yep, I'll leave it with this, Mark, that I appreciate you guys taking your time out. If you do take the time to implement this, I can guarantee you'll have success and you will create that other revenue stream for your business. And that being said, I think that's all I have today, Mark.
Great. Thank you all for attending. We will be in touch. We're going to follow up with a phone call here. If not later this afternoon, then we'll begin reaching out to you here next week. So thank you again. Keep your eyes open for the email on the recording today. Have a great weekend. Thank you all.